Over the last 12 months, I've been wearing a continuous glucose monitor off and on, and it's been really fun because I've been testing different foods to see how it affects my glucose and how going for workouts and runs after that can mitigate a rise in my glucose. So what I want to do is walk around the grocery store and show you what I have found to be the 5 worst foods for blood sugar and glucose response, and more importantly, healthier swaps. Now, I am not diabetic and my body is different from you, but I think you might find this video interesting, just like I found some of the results very interesting too. Juices are healthy, right? Especially cold pressed juices. Well, yes, because cold pressed juices have a lot of living nutrition in them, but you have to think about what the juice is made for. So I did a really cool experiment. I tried 2 juices, and the first one I tried was this here. It's the cold pressed Suja Fuel. Carrot, orange, pineapple, apple, lemon. It was tasty as can be, but look what it did to my blood sugar. It spiked it pretty high. Why? Because the vegetables and fruit in here are high in sugar. Yes, there's 0 grams of added sugar here, but the natural sugars come to a total of 28. 28 grams of sugar is just about 7 teaspoons of natural sugar, right? The problem with juice is look at the fiber. The fiber is 0. When you're gonna have that amount of sugar, natural sugar, with no fiber, you're gonna spike it big time. So next day, around the same time, I had this one right here, the Suja Uber Greens. Now, look at the ingredients. It's primarily vegetables and green leafy veggies. There's 5 grams of total sugar in here versus the 28 grams. And what did that do to my blood sugar? Nothing at all. So I know we like to think of these juices as healthy, but when you have those kind of spikes, it's very hard to maintain focus. When you give these kind of juices to your kids at school, at lunch, or for snack time, how are they supposed to focus and not be hyperactive? So yes, that might be a little sweeter, but when it comes to juices, especially the healthy cold pressed juices, I recommend ones that have low natural sugars. I did a fun experiment for breakfast. I basically had a bagel breakfast with cream cheese, jelly, eggs, coffee, a little bit of sugar, and orange juice. And I thought to myself, it's not something I would eat necessarily, but it's a pretty standard American breakfast that a lot of people might look at and be like, oh, it looks relatively balanced and healthy. Well, it raised my blood sugar 69 points, and I got a score of 1 out of 10. Why did that happen? Well, this is the bagel I use, just a regular plain bagel. The bagel itself had 45 carbs, net carbs, 48, and then 3 grams of fiber. Add to that another 20 some odd grams of sugar, natural sugar, from the orange juice. I use this jelly right here, which happens to be a higher sugar one. 1 tablespoon has 12 grams of added sugar. And next thing you know, you end up having over 80 carbs to start your day. And they oftentimes say that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Well, I would argue that yes, it is. But if you're gonna have that kind of rise in your glucose, it's very hard to start your day right. Because once again, I don't think you can be productive and laser focused, sustained energy all day when you're having a roller coaster ride of glucose all throughout the day. So then the next day I had what I basically eat every day for breakfast. 3 slices of bread, but keto bread, with eggs, cream cheese, and jelly. Did I use this jelly? No. I used this jelly. Is it sugar-free? No. But instead of having 12 grams of added sugar, it has 5 grams of added fruit juice. Instead of the cane sugar, I much prefer fruit juice. Still, basically no fiber, but way less sugar. And 3 slices of bread, you might think, Bobby, that's gonna spike your blood sugar and your glucose. No, look at the results. Barely any spike. And this happens almost every day when I eat breakfast, and check that. Why? Because with keto bread, you're not getting all the carbs. And yes, this is a slightly more expensive bread. It's called Base Culture. It's owned by a woman here on the west side of Florida. The fiber is off the charts. It has 3 grams of fiber per slice. I eat 3 slices. I consume 9 grams of fiber. The net carbs per slice are 5. So I'm having, yes, 15 grams of net carbs, but 9 grams of fiber mitigates that offset of carbs. And I combine it with eggs, which are good fat and protein. What happens when you combine carbs and protein? Slower, more gentle absorption and rise in glucose. And then my jelly is very, very low sugar. So yes, you can have a very hearty, bready breakfast, but you probably don't want to do it with this. Pick any keto bread you want. This just happens to be the most Bobby approved one on the market, and you'll be good to go. While I've been wearing the glucose monitor, a lot of people on Instagram have asked me exactly what it is. So the sensor itself under here is this. It's the Freestyle Libre from GSK, and the app that it communicates to on my phone is called Levels. I've been using it a long time. It's a great startup out of California. If you're interested, I have a link down below to join Levels. It's $200 a year for access to the app and the membership. They sell you the sensors, either the Freestyle Libre, they have the Dexcom G6 at cost. They don't mark those up at all. And then they ship them to you, they get a prescription for you and everything. Actually, they can set up in-home blood testing for you at cost too. But the reason why I like it is because it will tell you exactly the relationship to the activities you do, the food you eat, and how that affects your glucose. Once again, why is that important? Because I believe that having steady glucose or controlled glucose throughout the day is the key to really being focused and sustained energy. But you can do that with the Levels app and the Dexcom G6 or the Freestyle Libre. And my link down below gets you an extra 2 months of your membership. And once again, they will send you all of the sensors and everything to your house. So link down below if you're interested, check it out. It is very, very helpful for biohacking and much more. In general, pasta is a no-no if you're trying to watch your glucose. That is unless you eat the right type of pasta. That's what I call complex carbohydrate pasta. There's a theory that goes around online that I put to the test that if you're going to eat carbs like pasta or rice or potatoes, if you eat them left over after they've been thoroughly chilled in the fridge, it doesn't spike your glucose as much because when they chill, the starch becomes resistant, which doesn't spike the glucose. So what I did is right here. I took one of the few Bobby approved mac and cheeses. This is new. This is Jovial organic gluten-free mac and cheese. What is the pasta made of? Brown rice, complex carbohydrate versus white wheat over there. But what I love about it is that it's made with organic cheese, which is non-GMO, and no BS ingredients. So what did I do? Day one, I had a hot, fresh bowl of mac and cheese, and it was yummy. I gotta pull up my phone here to see exactly what happened. But a 47-point rise in my glucose, resulting in a score of 3. Not good. And what I did about like 20 minutes after is I went for a walk. One of the best things I've learned in researching this is that after a meal, if you go for a walk, it really mitigates the rise in your blood sugar. The glucose goddess on Instagram talks about that all the time. The next day, after it was thoroughly chilled, I thought it would be lower. Look what happened. It was higher. It was more of a rise in my blood sugar. It resulted in a 65-point rise in a score of 1. The worst score you can get. My body is different from everyone else, but I do know that over the course of testing the glucose monitor with the GSK and the Levels app, complex carbs have been better. And once again, why does that matter for you if you're not diabetic? If you're interested in biohacking, if you're interested in sustained energy throughout the day, good mental clarity, it's very important to control your glucose throughout the day. And in general, if you're gonna eat carbs like pasta, complex carbohydrates like this, like chickpea pasta, red lentil pastas are better in smaller portions. While the leftover cold mac and cheese experiment didn't work, it kinda did work when I used a sweet potato. But fun fact, as sweet and delicious as the Japanese sweet potato is, it has a little extra sugar in there compared to the normal. And when I had that with a really sensible dinner of salmon cakes and salad, I had a big rise in my glucose. So what I did for the experiment of the regular sweet potato is on night one, I made a beautiful skirt steak, paired it with a kale salad and a roasted sweet potato. And the results were not that bad. I got an overall score on Levels of 7. And I know why, because unlike the mac and cheese, I paired my complex carbohydrate with protein from the steak and a little bit of roughage from the salad. If you're gonna have carbs, the best thing you can do, I found with eating myself and my monitor and research, is pair it with fiber-rich vegetables if possible and protein. So then I made an extra sweet potato that day, stashed it in the fridge, and the next day I reheated it with the same amount of meat and the same amount of kale salad. And I had less of a rise in my glucose and I had a better score of 8 out of 10. Why did that work? Well, maybe because we chilled the starch in the sweet potato and it became more resistant. But I think, once again, pairing it with that protein from the skirt steak and the roughage from the kale, and if I would have done that, if I would have had some fiber-rich vegetables first or a piece of chicken with the mac and cheese, I'll bet that would have worked well too. And I'll bet if you do this with the leftover sweet potato and you go for a walk after that, you're really putting all factors into play to have your carbs and have a minimal glucose reaction after that. Anytime I travel, I'll share my plain snacks on stories, and you wouldn't necessarily think eating chocolate would not spike your blood sugar, your glucose, but it can depending on what kind of chocolate you eat. So on a recent trip, I had a midday square, a whole square, and a pasture-raised turkey stick, and it only resulted in a 13-point rise in my glucose and a score of 8, I believe, which is really good. And it really depends on the kind of chocolate you eat. So most people will grab something like this, a bar of milk chocolate, which I just call candy. Why? Because a serving, which is 30 grams, has 15 grams of added sugar, which is essentially 4 teaspoons of added sugar and less than 1 gram of fiber. Without that fiber and with that much sugar, you're gonna have a pretty big spike. I wasn't willing to put my body through that test, but trust me, it would spike the glucose a decent amount. Compare that 30-gram serving to a square is 33 grams. How much added sugar do we have? 2 grams of added sugar, and that comes from coconut sugar, and 4 grams of fiber. Anytime you can pair your carbs with fiber, it slows the absorption of sugar into your bloodstream and mitigates that glucose rise. When you have your chocolate fix, the kind of chocolate matters greatly. Another one I really like just happens to be right here. It's like a Reese's peanut butter cup, but it's with hazelnuts, and there's 2 net carbs. So next time you go on your plane, grab some protein like a beef stick, pair it with some low sugar chocolate, and you got a great snack that's not gonna spike the old glucose. All right, friends, that is it from the grocery store, my happy place, about the top 5 foods that are really bad for my blood sugar and my blood glucose, and the better for you swaps. And once again, your body is different than mine. I am not diabetic, and you might have different results, but I have found these foods affected my blood sugar over the course of the last 12 months, and I wanted to share it with you. If you're interested in tracking yourself and biohacking and seeing how the foods you eat and the activities you do throughout the day affect your body, click my link down below, try Levels. They'll hook you up with the sensors, the app, and everything. But from the grocery store, my happy place, I leave you like I always do. # keep on cooking. Mad love. Peace. Later.